Okay, first up, it is my privilege to bring in Mr. Martin Walshaw, who is the Strategic Account Manager at Nutanix. Martin is a senior engineer who's worked with top vendors for over 20 years and has experience across sales and technical backgrounds with accreditations from being both a CCIE, a Cisco specialist, and a cybersecurity CISSP. His background is in security. However, over the years, he has adapted and been able to achieve both technical and sales skills in multiple areas, spanning virtualization, orchestration, automation, as well as application availability and optimization. Martin, if I can ask you to please take the microphone.
Thank you very much, Kumar. And luckily, I caught your introduction to me. I missed the rest of it, unfortunately. But let me quickly share my screen. Okay, just to confirm, you can see my screen, correct? Kumar? Oh, Michael, yeah.
Your screen is fine. Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Great, thank you very much. So thank you everybody for your time today. I'm hopefully not going to take up too much of your time, maybe 30 minutes maximum. And the topic of today's discussion is using the hybrid cloud agility to put your organization ahead. So I'm going to start off by going on a slight tangent and then hopefully bring it back into the actual topic itself. So I think, as Kumaran mentioned, we need to adapt, we need to change, and we need to thrive in this new digital economy. And when we talk about this new economy that we're in, and we talk about digital transformation, the question is, what does it really mean, and how does it affect me? So looking at it, I'll give you a couple of examples, and then start to tie it in from a business perspective. But if you look at the two examples over there, they're both cars, they're both great, they both get you from point A to point B. However, they're the same, but they are very, very, very different in what they do and how they do things. The functionality is the same. However, everything else beyond that is completely different. So, and the reason for that is obviously as new technology comes along, as things change, you need to be able to adapt. Something as simple as having a Tesla with self-driving rather than having somebody having to physically drive the car. Another example of this is, there's actually two pieces to this, is something like Uber. We used taxis for decades, up until Uber came along and made life different and made life easier. Allowed us to be able to get from point A to B in a cost-efficient manner without having to wait. So making sure that everything that happens in as short a time period as possible. On another example around this, my mother came to visit me over the weekend, and she has a physical map book still in her car. I don't even know how to use those, and my kids had never even seen one. So it's something that as technology changes, it is the same, but very different. And looking at where we are from a personal perspective, even looking at using the cloud and the way that we do things, everything is also changing. These are just a few of the connected devices that I have in my house, from my Bluetooth-enabled toothbrush to my sprinkler system, to my TVs, to my internet connectivity, to even the watches that we wear. Everything that we have now is connected and is managed remotely. Whereas before, obviously everything was isolated and everything was held internally within your own system. It just changes the way that we do things and how we work. An example of this is, I was flying back from somewhere, I can't remember where, but my wife couldn't access the sprinkler system, and because Emirates offered free 10 mega Wi-Fi, I basically connected. I was able to switch on the sprinkler systems while I was traveling over the US somewhere. So these connected devices are also changing what we do and how we work things. And once again, from a personal perspective, I have around between 50 and 60 devices that are connected at home. And you would think that, that's where it's going to end. But at the end of the day, it's not. This is a starting point. This is something that is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And as we do this, a lot more of these features and these functionalities, even from a home perspective, are going to be either running in the cloud or having some type of data in the cloud. So from that perspective, it does end up being something that we're seeing more and more of these devices. And if I have, between 50 and 60 devices at home, the question is, as organizations, what are the number of devices that you have in your infrastructure today? Not just that, the number of applications that you have, and how do we position those applications? So once again, just giving you an idea of how things have changed. See from the slide that I've put together, what happens in an internet minute, every single minute of every single day. And if you look at the big providers that you have there, you'll see, obviously, Amazon owns no stores, Uber owns almost no cars. Facebook doesn't create content. Airbnb has no real estate. Netflix is not a TV channel. So at the moment, it's not about the infrastructure that you have, but it's how can I make more efficient use while using somebody else's infrastructure. So looking at this, a lot of these things have changed over the past 5 years, and a lot of these things will change as we go forward. So making sure that how do you adapt and how do you change? And if you look at those companies that have been listed on the right-hand side, you'll see that those are the big guys today. Those are the ones that have actually been able to make this movement towards owning or holding almost no stock of the business that they are in. So it's very, very, very much how do we adapt towards this environment. And if I look at IT from our perspective, how has things changed? I think Kamara mentioned it earlier. We've obviously seen a big change when it comes to work from home. I personally have not been in the office for over a year. I look after East Africa and Indian Ocean Islands. I do not have customers in South Africa where I live. So have not been into the office or had a desk in an office for close to 20 years. So the work from home is not a big difference for me. But as an IT organization, you now have to cater for this. And while COVID has changed things, there's a lot of these processes that are going to be carry on going forward. So the question is, how do we become more agile, and how do we make sure that we're able to scale and change and adapt as the business needs require? So whether it is something like working from home, or whether it is something like having the ability to be able to scale, have the agility of cloud. And looking down the bottom, I think that is one of the big differences this year, is the fact that the capacity, it was actually late last year, the global internet capacity grew by 30% in 2020 because of the way that we are doing business, because of things like COVID and digital transformation, which was obviously around before COVID. But even then, with looking at these changes and these challenges, there's a lot of issues that we are trying to still resolve. Starting off from simple things like the fact that we have so many silos within infrastructure today, whether it be virtualization, storage, security, networking, infrastructure, applications, etc., etc. Those are very, very, very complex to manage. They are normally requiring specific skills. So you won't normally have people that have been able to be able to be experts in multiple different areas. Don't get me wrong, there is quite a few of those, but generally you like to be able to have your skills in a certain specific area. You cannot provision and deploy apps quickly enough. The business needs to change. You need to make sure that you are not focusing on the, you need to make sure that you are focusing on keeping the lights on, and you're not focusing on keeping the lights on, but you are actually innovating and making sure that you're able to provision and deploy applications as quickly and as easy as possible. Moving towards the right, there is always an extreme struggle to make sure that your applications and your data is both secure first and foremost, but also compliant to your in-country regulations. And having the ability to be able to travel across most of Africa in my IT career, I can state that every single country has different types of requirements to make sure that your data is compliant. Looking down the bottom, I think that those are sort of the normal things that we have a challenge with, is slow infrastructure rollout and scaling for growth. I've worked on a project. We sold the infrastructure, the Nutanix infrastructure, just over a year ago. They've only just received the equipment because it was caught in customs, and they're not able to take things and roll them out. They're not able to scale based on their requirements. They're already behind in what they're trying to do. So they're already behind the curve rather than staying ahead of curves when it comes to the digital economy. The other things just to mention is that we have a lot of unpredictable challenges when it comes to infrastructure, whether it be downtime or whether it be cost associated with that downtime. The thing is, we're trying to keep this infrastructure up 7/24 because, as we all know today, everything is about now. I want to place an order for something now. I want to do my banking now. I want to be able to shop for everything right now. So the moment that you have an outage, it creates a negative perception. So we're trying to figure out a way in which we can minimize the downtime that we have. And because we're spending so much time keeping the lights on, we end upgrading and trying to make sure that our infrastructure is working optimally. We lack the time, the resources, and the budget to be able to innovate. It's one of those things that you want to make sure that you're ahead of the pack and not trying to play catch up the whole time. I know that Michael is from a bank who's going to be talking a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I mentioned is the fact that I changed banks about 7 or 8 years ago. I was with the bank for around 25 years. I changed banks because there was one feature that I needed that was very specific to me, that meant that I had to go into the branch towards the end of every single month. And obviously, when you go to the branches, I mean, at the end of the month, that's when everybody gets paid. So it was a challenge for me to have to wait in the queues every single month to be able to do a specific type of transaction. Looking at one of the other banks, they had that feature and functionality, and they offered to change everything for me to make my life easier. And because they had one specific feature, I took my business from one bank to another. They were able to innovate rather than follow the pack. So having said that, it's something that we want to make sure that we are able to be able to innovate and to be able to look at different ways to do things, rather than just trying to keep the lights on and make do with what we have. So it's about choosing the right path and the right platform for your requirements. Making sure that you understand what your applications are and which direction you need to be going in. And I'll be talking about a couple of different directions that we can look at shortly. But if you look at it, your real path is towards the enterprise cloud, and I'll mention around that in the next slide. But it's about making sure that first and foremost, that you have an infrastructure that is modern, that you are making the most efficient use and getting economies of scale out of the infrastructure that you have in place, making sure that you simplify the infrastructure and trying to get away from having to keep the lights on, but have an infrastructure that is invisible to you. The way that I mention around this is, whether it be on-premise or in the cloud, is the fact that most of us have a Gmail account. With that Gmail account, the question is, what infrastructure are they running? What hypervisor are they running? What software they're running? And the answer is that you as a consumer, me as a consumer, I don't care. All I care about is that the application is up and running and working. And the reason for that is that somebody, in this particular example, Google, has been able to make efficient usage of everything that they have. They're able to scale out and scale up. They're able to simplify the management of their infrastructure, and giving you as the consumer the ability to be able to just worry about that application and what we do with it. That is what we want as consumers today. Moving across is providing IT as a service. So providing lots of automation within your environment, making sure that it is as simple and easy to be able to manage. Once again, whether it is on-premise or in the public cloud. But making sure that it is as simple and easy as possible to be able to manage. Making sure that you have automation in place. So something like the ability to be able to automatically spin up and take down virtual machines. Having a portal, which is on the next block, but having a portal in place to be able to do self-service. Making sure that you can have your users create something, automate the process, and to be able to make it as simple as possible. And as we move across to innovation and agility, once we've made the operational efficiencies and the automation as simple as possible, is start to look at cost governance. And my next few slides will be geared, and we'll be looking at specifically around cost governance. Excuse me. So first things first, when we look at workloads or applications, the question is, where should they be? Should they be on-premise or in the public cloud? And there are pros and cons for both. So first things first is, I'm just going to mention the workloads and some of the reasons why we would keep workloads on-premise. The first thing, and probably the most important thing, is that we have something called data gravity and legacy applications. Data gravity is basically the fact that your applications and your data are attracted to each other. And as you get more and more and more data, it becomes more and more difficult or more and more complex to move that data to another place. So in some cases, because of the size and the type of the data that you have, you're not able to move that from an on-premise into a public cloud, as an example. And also you have some regulatory, so you have some legacy applications that are in there as well, that just cannot be moved to the cloud environment. Moving across, we obviously have regulatory concerns, whether that is something like GDPR, or whether it is something like POPI, or a whole host of other things that we have dependent on the country. I know that countries like Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda have their own versions of POPI, or their own versions of GDPR. So there are regulatory concerns around that. And also, in some cases, you're not allowed to host your data outside your organization's geography. An example of that is something like Ethiopia, where public cloud at this moment in time is non-existent due to government regulations. Moving across, something like loss of control, where because you can't have it, it's not on your premises, you feel like you're actually losing control of the workloads that are out there in the public cloud, and you want to be able to deploy security solutions around making sure that your applications are protected. So you feel like you have this loss of control. Moving across, the last one, which is what I will be talking about as well, is unpredictable costs. There's a lot of challenges with regards to public cloud when it comes to costs themselves. And I'll be talking about over the next couple of slides how you, as the IT organization, can first of all make a decision whether an application is better suited for on-premise or in the cloud based on cost, and provide these capabilities to be able to make sure that you limit the costs, number one. And number two is that you are making most efficient usage of the workloads or the applications or the virtual machines that you have in the public cloud. So the real way to do this is a hybrid cloud, having some of your applications that are based on the private cloud and some of your applications in the public cloud, depending on what your requirements are. Each individual application, each individual organization has different requirements from different types of applications. But realistically, depending on who you're trying to service and who you're trying to give these requirements to, would depend on where the application goes in. But you do need to have some type of cost governance in place when we look at the public cloud. Just to give you a couple of examples, we were expecting the bill to be 20K a month, but now it's 200. And the reason for that is several-fold. But the point is that, as you can see from the quote by Gartner, 80% of companies were unaware of their mistakes in cloud adoption, and they're going to end up overspending in cloud by 20 to 50%. So what we really need to do is to make sure that we take control of our cloud costs and make sure that we understand which applications are suited for the cloud, number one. And number two, making sure that when we have those applications in the cloud, that they are using the right type of resources that is cost efficient for that particular application. So looking at some of the challenges when we have a private cloud and a public cloud, so having the multi-cloud or the hybrid cloud situation, working out costs when it comes to a private cloud can be difficult. There's lots of different criteria that you need to put in place, and how do we get around that? Other things to worry about is, okay, cool, so we're able to have something in place and we're able to figure out how much each application costs. The question is, how do we do that chargeback? And in a lot of cases, these are very efficient and time-consuming processes that we put in place that make it very difficult for us to be able to understand who should be charged what for the application. And as we move towards the public cloud, it can be daunting if you look at the options that are available from the different cloud providers, from the different hyperscalers that are out there. It does add some complexity to this. Not just that, is even looking at security or other features that you require can add cost, and it can add complexity to how we do those. And in some cases, there is lack of consumption controls. Don't get me wrong, there are ways and means to put consumption controls in place, but not everybody does it. And because of that, you end up with a much higher cost than what you would have normally. So what can Nutanix do from our perspective? Well, there's lots of things that we can do to be able to help you get this visibility into the cost cost benefits of using the public and the private cloud, the enterprise cloud or the private cloud. Having the ability to be able to look at cost visibility and metering, looking at your overall spend, your resource allocations, whether it be both public cloud or whether it be on-premise, having automated chargeback capabilities and budgeting to be able to track how much each and every individual department is spending on either the private cloud or the public cloud. And I think one of the most important parts of this is making sure that you have cost optimizations and savings. So right-sizing everything and making the right choice for the right application, for the right cloud. Ensuring that everything is in its right place and is right-sized. So looking at things this is more from a Nutanix perspective, we give you the ability to be able to run an analysis across multiple clouds. The example that you can see here has 3 different areas. We have an application. We have the costs that are currently running in either AWS or Azure. So we would require the logins to be able to log in and check and see what the costs are. But we're able to look and compare whether something will be cheaper in the on-premise, the private cloud, or would it be cheaper to be able to run in the public cloud. So we provide a total TCO because we're not just looking at the actual cost itself, but as we go through the next few slides, I'll show you exactly what the details are around each of the individual focus areas. But you can compare both Nutanix on-premise and Azure and AWS. As an example, I have a customer that is running around 80% of his applications in AWS at this moment in time. And based on the tool, based on our tool, he's figured out that actually it's very similar. So it's an 80-20 split based on the applications that he has, that he should be having 80% of his applications in the cloud. So he's able to right size. He's not able to just choose the right cloud, but he's also able to right size the applications that he has in place. And even if we get the right cloud, we want to be able to provide you with the right cost visibility and the right metering. So ensure that you understand what the costs are for each individual application. As an example that you have there, you'll see it's not just about the hardware. So we can take the Nutanix hardware costs, what the capabilities are. We do make some estimates, but you can change those estimates. So we will estimate what the hardware and the software has cost you. We can take into account other things as well in your total cost of ownership, such as the facilities, maybe the people to be able to do the configuration, any types of services or telecom costs because you have internet connectivity there. So we're not just looking at the cost of the actual hardware and software versus the public cloud itself. We're actually taking a true total cost of ownership by taking the different areas and the different cost centers, bringing them into one to be able to give you a true cost for your on-premise versus your public cloud environments. We can also be a lot more, you can go down into the nth degree with this. So it depends on how deep and you want to go with it. But it's possible to be able to even look at something like services or facilities when we talk about power. And obviously power is something that is very critical from a South African perspective right now. We can pretty much give a cost per kilowatt hour. The point is that we're able to get in and figure out where an application should be. And at the same time, have that ability to be able to say where an application should be based on cost, which cloud it should be in if you are putting it in the public cloud, and also have the ability to be able to charge that back to a specific cost center or to a specific department, to be able to make sure that the right people are paying for the right resources. And if they are using resources that are not needed, not required, that they're not exceeding the budget that they have available. So as you are spending more and more and more, we can actually have proactive budget alerts sent out to you as the customer to be able to notify when we start to exceed specific budgets. And the last one, most importantly, as I mentioned, is probably making more efficient use of, first of all, what you have already in the public cloud. Maybe you are over provisioning or under provisioning specific virtual machines, and in some cases it might make sense to do RI purchases or reserved instances purchases. So making sure that we understand what the virtual machines are, or what the applications are that are being used in either the public or the private cloud, and make sure that they are right size for the organization. And as you can see down the bottom, as part of our roadmap, is dynamically compare workloads across Nutanix and multiple public clouds, making sure that you can understand where and how an application should be, whether it should be on Azure, whether it should be on AWS, or whether it should be on-premise. So it's about making the intelligent decisions around where an application resides, and making sure that you're making more efficient usage of the budget that you have available. So the question in the last two slides is, so what do we actually do, and how do we actually get these cost savings? So normally, by right sizing the virtual machines, looking at the data stores and the elastic load balancers, changing the resources that we're currently using, you could probably expect about a 5% in your total cloud savings, whether it be on-premise or in the public cloud. It would be around that. And if you look at customers that are switching to reserved instances, you'll find that the pricing versus your ad hoc that you are creating, from a pricing perspective, is normally between 15 and 25% of the total cost of your cloud savings. So the reserved instances, while small, is still for me very critical, but moving your resources across to reserved instances can also make a difference when it comes to the pricing. And my second last slide, it's around cleanup of idle resources. You'll have guys like DevOps creating virtual machines or creating something that they just do not bother deleting. You may have snapshots that are no longer required, that haven't been deleted, that are taking up space. So we can actually automate the process of cleaning up all the unused data that is currently within a virtual machine. Once again, giving you up to 5% of the total cloud savings. And last but not least is automated scheduling. So turning off and turning on when resources are required. So if you are running an instance, there's no point in having it over the weekends or overnight, because generally people don't work then. And if that's the case, then turn them off. You're going to be saving costs when you do that. And that can also save you 5 to 10% of your total cost savings. Last thing I would suggest is Nutanix has a cloud usage report, which you can download and read. It gives you far more detail than I've given you in the last 30 minutes around all of the details that I've mentioned. It allows you to be able to understand how clouds are being used today, where the savings are in more details, and what the process is from public cloud to private cloud, or private cloud to public cloud. And from a Nutanix perspective, we obviously support both, and we have that ability to be able to move workloads from on-premise into the public cloud and vice versa. So looking at the advantages, which is the last slide that I have, first of all, you want to reduce your time to value. If you are spending something, you want to make sure that you get the most efficient usage out of that money. You want to have policies in place for your spend, whether it be on the public cloud or whether it be on your private enterprise cloud situation. You want to make sure that you can automate as much as possible, making sure, as I mentioned earlier on, that you are spending more time innovating and less time keeping the lights on and doing the upgrades, etc. And last but not least is the ability to be able to customize according to your specific needs, whether it be the cost policies around what something costs for you, or whether it be creating specific reports that you need to have for upper management. But having this ability to be able to make sure that you have the right application in the right cloud at the right time at the right cost. That is what we, the point I'm trying to get across today. Just one quick case study. Hitachi have been using us for quite a while. Their major benefit was the fact that they did quite a bit of reserved instances. So they were doing a lot of ad hoc creation and deletion of resources. And once they went to reserved instances, they were able to greatly reduce their spend. And as it mentions down the bottom, they doubled their business with no increase in spending. So from that perspective, they were able to gain great value and they were able to double what they were doing while not increasing their cloud spend. And that is it from me for the moment. I'm going to stop sharing and pass this along to the next presenter. I think we will be taking questions towards the end of this. I think after Michael has done his portion, if I'm correct. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Yes, I think so. If I can just introduce Dr. Modiba and then hand the mic across to him. Martin, is my sound okay?
It is perfect.
Okay. Okay, it was my intention to say this at the end of the meeting. I will say it now because I forget things that I schedule for the end of things. So please note all presentations will be shared with the attendees of this meeting. It will be emailed to you after the event. Okay, so now it's my pleasure, and thank you, Martin. That was a particularly informative talk. I think we have a lot to talk about. I now want to introduce Dr. Michael Modiba. Michael's a cloud engineer at Standard Bank. He's a dynamic skilled digital transformation driver, currently a database cloud engineer, and he's the team manager of about 10 people, working with DB2, LUW, Postgres, databases at the Standard Bank Group. His thesis is titled A Digital Transformation Framework for South African Financial Service Providers. That's particularly interesting to me, and I suppose to many others as well. And in that, Michael developed a framework to address the what, the how, in terms of digital transformation in the context of South African financial service providers. Michael, welcome. I'll hand the mic across to you and mute myself.
Thank you, Kumaran. Can you guys hear me clearly, right? On your side?
You're coming across well.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Kumaran, for the great insight around payments and a great intro. Martin, thank you very much also for your insightful presentation. I think today I've gained more knowledge around Nutanix because I always see the Nutanix ads on LinkedIn, but today you've brought it closer to home. I've gained valuable knowledge around that. I would like to take this opportunity to greet everyone on the call and thank you very much for your time and the opportunity for me to present at this webinar. So as Kumaran has already introduced me, my name is Michael Modiba. I'm currently fulfilling a role of a cloud engineer at Standard Bank with focus on databases. We look after databases such as Postgres and DB2. Yes, I've acquired a PhD qualification at NW Business School in Poch. And also, I'm also an external examiner at Vets Business School and UNISA for IT and IS postgraduate research projects. My research topic focused on digital transformation framework for financial service providers in South Africa. So the topic of today's session will focus on designing a future that performs today using digital transformation. So let us take this time to discuss how one can design the future using digital transformation, with the focus being digital business. So you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between digital transformation and digital business? So digital transformation is all about, it's not about technology. It's actually about a new way of doing business and a new way of approaching corporate models. And on the other hand, digital business is all about the use of technology to create a new value in business models as well as customer experience. Digital business is achieved through digital transformation process, which goes through a number of layers. We will go into detail on what these layers are all about in the pyramid slide, which is going to be the third slide from this one. So at its most basic, digital business requires less human intervention. Digital transformation is all about having more business processes and operations that are automated to enable digital business. In essence, digital business is one way of designing the future that performs. So let me give you practical examples that you are familiar with. So if you've been to McDonald's lately across South Africa, they currently offer a self-ordering service where there's stalls in the shop where you can order there and pay with your card. Then the only interaction that you'll have is when you're collecting your food. So that's one example of how they've transformed how they were doing business into digital business. Another one that it's popular in South Africa, it's Take a Lot. A lot of people now can order stuff on Take a Lot from the comfort of their own home without even going to the malls, without even worrying about the opening and the closing times of the malls. So Take a Lot offers a platform that enables you to do that. So that's another great example. And also, I've heard Martin saying he used to get frustrated. He needs to go to the bank month end in the previous years. So now banks have transformed on how they offer services. So right now, the banks have exposed capabilities to customers using different channels. You can have your app. You can also go to the internet banking. You can also give them a call if you need to do something. So all those services are available on your mobiles. So basically, transformation is saying the capabilities are not sitting in the branch. They're sitting somewhere. So why can't we expose them to customers? So that's what a lot of businesses are doing. So they're exposing those capabilities to customers wherever they are. If you think of what happened in COVID-19, can you imagine if we all couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything? So that's another, those are great examples of what digital transformation is all about. So basically, the future is digital. South Africa should take this opportunity also and become role players and not participants, not bystanders. They need to participate in this journey. So looking at the slide of some of the well-known examples around transformation. So I'm sure you're familiar with those examples that I will give now regarding the transformation journey. A lot of people, Kumaran, Martin also just gave the examples now. People used to go to the office, now people work from home. So we're doing things differently. And also, traditionally, you would store your files on your phone. Now you can store your files on the cloud, so that which offers an advantage. If your files are lost, you can restore them. And also, a lot of people around the world, they are no longer going to class. They're doing the online class thing. So you don't really need to go to the class. So as young as preschool kids, they're now into this transformation journey where they can do their studying from home. Although, yeah, we know homeschooling has been something that has been there in some families traditionally. And another popular example is physical books are going out of fashion. A lot of people prefer to read books on their tablets. There's a lot of ebooks now that are available out there. And another interesting example is around chatting. So growing up in my times, not that I'm that old, we used to send SMSs a lot. So recently we've got applications such as WhatsApp, Telegrams, that offers you more capability. We can have family groups where you can chat to different people, video call them, also send them locations of where you are. So we have transformed from where we're coming from, how things were and how things are right now. So those are some of the critical examples. Another very critical example that I like, it's around the medical field. So right now, so transformation is allowed doctors, medical doctors, to take scans and send them across overseas and do some analysis quickly. So there's various technologies involved there, like your Internet of Things there, your big data that are available there, artificial intelligence that helps these medical doctors to perform such. And let me bring it closer to home right now, because we are on this webinar. So traditionally we'll be having a venue where we have to go and sit and also do presentations from there. So right now, things are all done remotely. That's another example of how things have transformed. So let me move on to the next slide, which is the most interesting slide of the presentation. So the slide that you're looking at, it's a digital transformation pyramid by George or Westman, which depicts what needs to be in place for the implementation of digital transformation to take place. So basically, digital transformation is a top-down approach, starting with business strategy throughout to corporate execution, all the way to enabling technologies. So basically, an effective digital transformation program has to embrace at least 2 or 3 of these layers that you're looking at. So the layers, namely, it's business strategy layer, corporate execution layer, and the enabling technologies layer. And ideally, the transformation program must cover all these 3 layers in the long term for this to be successful. So in essence, when you look at the business strategy layer, it speaks to the business models, which talks to future goals, future plans, and objectives of a specific organization. And then if you look at the execution layer, speaks to how the future operations will look like, the business objectives, and how they are achieved through execution. Within this corporate execution layer, you need to make sure that you have a sound operating model which goes into operation, thereafter take it to the market for your customers to consume. And the last layer, which is the most interesting layer, a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard them talking about different technologies that are out there. So this layer highlights a technology layer that will enable the execution. So we're talking about technologies such as 4IR technologies, which are robotics, machine learning, the automation, artificial intelligence, the big data, the cloud itself, and the Nutanix technologies, as per my predecessor Martin has spoken about them. And now, recently, if you have been paying the news, attention to the news, there's a talk around 5IR. 5IR, which talks about smart cities that are coming into development. So it is important to acknowledge that each of these 3 layers of the pyramid has a strong influence on the other elements of the framework. So I'll ask Joyce to play us a video. The video will highlight some of the skills required on how we would look like in the future. So this video will show you, if we need to prepare for the future, there's certain things that we need to go through. There's certain skills that we need that are required. So Joyce, please play us the video. I hope you guys will enjoy the video.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Michael, you can please stop your screen so I can share mine. Thank you.
Joyce, the sound is not very good. Can we try this again, please?
Yeah.
I'm going to recommend we skip the video, people. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to recommend we skip the video. The gremlins have jumped into YouTube. What I will ask is that, yeah, there's a good suggestion in the chat. If you can please share the link for the video in the chat, and the attendees will watch it on their direct connections. I'm now going to thank you very, very much, Michael. That was a great presentation, and thank you for emphasizing that digital transformation is not about technology and the business case. I just want to check. Joyce is going to bring up the polls now. If I can ask that the attendees please contribute towards these polls. While you're doing that, I'll test to see if there's any questions as well. Joyce, can you bring up the polls, please? We don't have much time, so I just want to test while we have the polls up, if there are any questions from any of the participants. I'm having a look at the attendee list. I'm checking for unmuted mics or for hands up. I don't see any questions. I mean, I have a couple of questions if no one else is going to ask. Okay, let me kick off and just very quickly. So Martin, let me start with you. And I'm going to ask you to be about as succinct as you can. Could you demystify some of the myths associated with a cloud-first strategy? What are the things, some of the things people think that are incorrect, and give us some insight into a cloud-first strategy?
Yeah, I think that so first of all is when we look at there's quite a few things actually. So I'm going to keep it very, very, very short and sweet. I think that first of all, the challenge is that we think we have to be cloud to be good. Okay, we have to make sure that everything is in the cloud first, and that's not always the case. That is the first thing. The second thing is that you know, when we look at decisions, and what I've based everything on today is around money, right? And making decisions on where to place an application based on money. But actually, it's not always about money. You know, we always think that the cloud will save us money, but actually, that's not always the case. And you know, it all depends on how we would look at putting our applications in place. So I think that there's a lot to be said around a lot to be said around cost optimization. And then the one of the biggest things that I see about cloud first is that it's coming from the top down. CEOs are saying we're going to go cloud, we have a cloud strategy, and actually, realistically, nobody's put anything else in place. So the concept and the terminology of cloud first, I think, has different meanings for different organizations. So the way that I would go around it is, first things first, look at the applications that you're going to be running. Second thing is look at where they are best suited. Is it on-premise? Is it in the cloud? And third of all, make decisions and have that ability to be able to move backwards and forwards based on how things change, on how costs change. So that would be my couple of specific pointers around that.
Thanks, Martin. I see there was a question raised in the chat. The question was from Rodwin asking, how do you determine what to run in the cloud and what to run in premises?
Okay, so that's difficult. I'm sure, look, there's two different answers to that. I think Michael may have a different answer to me. But for me, I think that the big thing is it's based on where your users are. So are they located within your infrastructure or not? Number one, because you want to have the data and the applications be as close to the users. I think the cost definitely plays a big part in where an application should be. And then the other thing is, what type of application is it? Is it something that is fairly static and predictable, or is it an application that's going to be elastic and grow and contract according to the day of the week, week of the month, month of the year? So in other words, let me think of an example. Think about SARS as an example. I mean, with SARS, you have everybody trying to put in their tax returns in the last 2 weeks of the financial year, but the other 50 weeks, generally, they've got predictable, they have a predictable number of people that are going to be using their system. So there's no one answer fits all. I think that the 3 or 4 things that I've just mentioned are something to take into consideration. Michael, I don't know if you have anything to add on to that.
Oh, thanks, Martin. So let me just turn on my video. Thanks, Martin, for that. So basically, for me, the critical applications are because of availability. Remember, if customer-facing systems, let's take Takealot as an example. Their systems has to be available all the time. So the cloud offers that resilience, that they've got multiple failover sites. So applications that are critical and have got high availability, I'll put them in the cloud. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Michael. I think that's a very good guidance on that. We have reached the hour, people, and I don't want to take you way past that. I will check if there are any other remaining questions. I don't see any others. It's still Rodwin's question. If we're then comfortable with that, what I'd like to do is close the session. I don't know if either of our presenters want to make a last comment, a short last comment. If not, I'm going to thank the audience for their participation and for being here and close the session. Martin, any last word from you?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much for spending the last hour with us. Hopefully you found it useful.
Michael? Thank you, Martin.
I just wanted to say thank you to all the participants for joining. And I just wanted to close in the statement that transformation is not about technology. It's more than technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, and to everyone that's here, thank you for attending. To the presenters, I think it was an exceptional conversation, and looking forward to seeing the slides and connecting with all of you. Have a good day, everyone. I will bid you farewell.
Thank you.
Thank you.